The best thing about Paranoia RPG is that the less you know of the game, the less that you know of the game, the more successful that you'll be. And in exploring some of the different role-playing systems that I enjoy, I wanted to push up the first of a few Paranoia RPG guide points because the spirit of this game, when it evolved in the early 80s, late 80s, was the idea of kind of the anti-role-playing game. You saw a lot of role-playing games at that time taking themselves very, very seriously. Complex rules, some a little bit more advanced. This is the framework. And they created great stories and wonderful events. But Paranoia is the type of game that stuff happens and you can bend the rules however you want. And it's about completing the mission, working with the party, with your fellow players, but also just trying to survive and kind of existing in that moment. So it was a completely different shift. Now, this is the type of role-playing system, just for a framework, my own RPG group. We tend to play D&D. And for the most part, I've got two strains of D&D going. I've got an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game running, and I've got the D&D current game running. And sometimes we have some crossover with players that'll be in both my groups. There are also role-playing games that I will run pretty regularly. Every couple of months, then we'll take a break for a little bit. Then it's like, hey, we're starting up a new campaign. You want in? That will be Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, 3rd edition. 3rd edition. I really like 3rd edition, some of the mechanics that it does. And we'll explore Dark Heresy because I play Warhammer 40,000 and I've got a lot of Warhammer 40K players, so it's a natural fit. They understand the lore. But then we've got Paranoia. This is the type of game that I'll run an adventure, a scenario, and sometimes it'll be with completely new players, but other times it'll be with players that literally have played with me before and they play the same character. They hold it. We'll try to do that a couple of times a year. And I try to run kind of an all-day kind of marathon type event, both because I really love the system, but also I find it's best explored by people that have no idea what's going on. The computer is your friend. The computer is never wrong. If you remember those two things, that's really the only rules that you need to know. Now, as a GM, as a game master, the two things within this framework, after we've created our characters and you've got your mission briefing, before we start handing out equipment, the 2 to 3 things that I like to keep in mind as a Paranoia GM is the first, the rules are beyond optional. Now, this is really true in any role-playing game. I mean, if we look at something like Dungeons and Dragons, the rules are a framework. They're a guide. It's up to the dungeon master, the GM of that system, to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to operate with it. And if there's a rule question, they kind of make the decision. And ideally, they make a fair decision, or at least based on some other type of rule. They can go 1-to-1. But those rules are optional. We get into house rules, homebrew rules. There was a lot of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules that were just like, you know what, we're not going to play with it for this adventure because we're trying to do something a little bit different, like spell casting times, sometimes weapon speed, facing armor class adjustments. If I'm with a wargaming audience, we kind of pull that aspect in. But if it's more of a D&D modern group that wants to get a little splash, a little taste of AD&D, then we kind of leave some of those more esoteric pieces out. So with Paranoia, that's taken to the extreme. The rules are the framework, and I'm ready to just kind of use those as a guide. Now, any player, they know the rules. You've got the rule book. I try to have everyone check out the rules ahead of time so they know that flow, they know that flavor. If you're going to call me on any rule, if you're going to call me and challenge me on any rule, then I'm going to use that because I'm not a troubleshooter. I'm the computer. I'm not even a programmer. I'm the computer. Might be a programmer behind it. But with that, the first question is, if I make a ruling and you say, well, that's not how the rule works, or I want to use this ability, how do you know what the rules are? That's classified. That's way, way above your color level right now. So how do you know the rules? Putting out stuff like that as the computer, asking a fellow troubleshooter, a fellow player, how do you know that? Now, the other players, if they played before, they're like, this is gold. Because I'm going to start stepping back because some sort of laser is going to come through the ceiling and vaporize smoking boots. Or I can use this to show my loyalty to the computer. How do they know the rules? Computer? I don't know any of the rules. I don't need to know the rules as a player. I trust in the computer's benevolence. There's a lot of potential role play aspects, ROLE, as opposed to ROLL, where you're just like, look, these are the rules. I'm going to roll dice. This is what's going to happen. So sometimes I will deliberately step back from the rules a little bit as incentive or bait, a trap for the players to be like, well, no, I can do this and I'm going to do this. How do you know how to do that? The second aspect is sudden shifts in the game. Alpha Complex is a very unique place. Code is being written, rewritten. Everyone's kind of doing whatever the heck they want, and you don't dare question the computer or the utopia that we are creating. Color shifts. The troubleshooters are usually at the lower levels, but as they get to the mid-levels, if it's a mixed group, suddenly walking down a corridor, and this is the only way to get to the objective, half the floor changes color. You're now caught on that, and it might be security or someone else coming by or a bot questioning that. Having things shift left and right halfway through. That's some interesting thing because the color level and the clearance is so important to the game to switch in just a moment and have the players talk their way out of it. The third, now this is something that is not unique to Paranoia, but it's kind of a mainstay of most role-playing games. And I'm right there with you. It's about the loot. It's about the treasure. It's about the gear, right? This is one of the reasons why I'm like grinding crazy with Diablo. Item sets, gear. Yes, I want to gain experience. Yes, I want to become a renowned adventurer in D&D. But I want that loot. I want that treasure. I want those magic items. And I want to evolve my character. Taking this concept of treasure, which doesn't really exist in Alpha Complex because we're a utopia and we just don't need it, but gear, issuing gear, right? Most of my Paranoia adventures start, troubleshooters wake up in the barracks, computer summons them, gives them some sort of mission briefing, but often when I read the mission briefing, I'll print it out and I'll read it, but there will be sentences that will be like redacted, taken away, altered, classified. So you only get like not even 1/3 of the mission briefing, and you got to kind of put it together. I try to leave those pieces out. Of course, I know the true mission briefing, being the computer, because I know absolutely everything. You get your mission briefing, then you report to receive your gear, and a lot of times it'll be in my visualization kind of this well-lit room, this huge room with kind of steel and metal drawers that are locked, and like one or two will pop out. So as a troubleshooter, you pop up, two drawers open up, there's your gear. And of course, the gear will be color-coded based on your clearance, based on what's been issued. Occasionally, I will issue gear above someone's clearance, but I will then give them kind of a temporary clearance card for another color. That's complete temptation. Most of the time, the gear, I explain what it is. I won't say you found this or this is what you're issued. I tell you what it looks like, and you got to kind of figure out most of the time what it is, but sometimes you don't know what it is. You know, some sort of strange keypad with a bunch of symbols on it and some wires. Is it legit hacking? Is it just junk? Who the heck knows, right? Only the computer knows. But if that's above, and that'll be color-coded, of course, if that's above your color clearance, I'll issue, the computer, in its benevolence, will issue you this clearance card. Well, now we bring up some interesting things. And it plays off, I don't want to say the greed of the players, but you got something cool, you're going to take it. If you don't take it, then are you saying the computer does not know what's going on? If you do take it, you know it's a trap because since it's above your clearance, at some point you're going to use it. At some point, someone's going to question why you have it. You're going to show your pass, your multi-pass. You're going to show your clearance. They might say, okay, carry on. Or they might say, well, this is false. This is incorrect. This has been hacked. Well, right, we're going to kind of get into that. But I will then issue some gear that has no clearance pass, has nothing. The computer made a mistake. I'm just saying that for you. It got hacked. It made a mistake. Some drawer opened. Some troubleshooter from a previous adventure put the wrong gear in there. Something happened where This is, you've got some sort of ray pistol or some sort of 1950s kind of Fallout-y type tech device, and it's too good to pass up, but you've got no clearance for it. You're going to take that. You just can't resist taking that, and that is going to get you in a lot of trouble. So I use the gear as a chance to create narratives and create hooks and get the players into as much trouble that the troubleshooters can get in. On a side note, as the computer, bootlicking. You cannot bootlick enough in Paranoia. The really good players, what I've noticed is if you can just convince me and you can bootlick your way out of almost anything, including just a weird roll or maybe issuing yet another clone, to replace yourself, or a mistake in the matrix giving you a new clone number, a lot of different options. But this thing, Paranoia, from the perspective of the GM, or I should say the computer, it does require a shift from a more kind of traditional role-playing game and understanding the presentations, the options, the ways of playing the game, and presenting that to the players. Next video, vlog that I'm going to push up at Paranoia, prepping the players ahead of time, right? Getting some physical players, some physical troubleshooters to the table, and how to present the game to people familiar with role-playing games, but they've never played anything like Paranoia before. So they kind of have an idea of what they're getting involved in and how the narrative of this RPG is vastly different than other RPGs.